Okay. Good afternoon, folks. If you can hear me, can you kind of give a wave or a thumbs up so I can make sure? Excellent. All right. So you should both be able to unmute yourselves. And I want to make sure I have the proper people here. So Ms. Rogers, Mr. Wilson, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So folks, we are here today. I'm Judge Haxall. This is for hearing on a request for protection. It's my understanding, Mr. Wilson, that you are challenging the order of protection. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just so you're aware, the clerk is going to be joining us as well. All right. So I want to just go through a couple procedural matters. For this hearing, because Ms. Rogers is what we call the movant, the party requesting something, she goes first. She presents the evidence that she believes supports her request for the issuance of plenary order of protection. That can be, Ms. Rogers, as simple as you telling me your side of the story. If you have any other witnesses or evidence to present, you'll be given that opportunity. I will ask that while you can get into some of the items outside of the specifics of your petition, generally speaking, that's what I'm looking at. I've reviewed your petition, so I'm going to ask you to talk about those things. Mr. Wilson, you will then have the right to ask questions of Ms. Rogers. You're not required to, but you'll have that right. And then whenever she's done providing her evidence, you will have the opportunity to provide evidence of your own. Again, you're not required to, but you'll be provided that opportunity. Once again, it can be as simple as you telling me your side of the story. If you present evidence, though, then Ms. Rogers would have the chance to ask you questions if she wished. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Ms. Rogers, are you presenting witnesses other than yourself?
No.
Okay. And do you have any evidence, whether it's text messages, recordings, anything other than your own testimony?
I mean, I have pictures of text messages and Snapchats from him.
Okay. So the difficulty I've found with Zoom is obviously it's tough to be able to kind of show me that. There's a couple of options, and it's going to kind of depend on how savvy you are with the technology. One option is you can do something called a share screen, and I'm going to click now to permit both of you to be able to do it. I'm going to show you an example of it. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Zoom. If you click the share screen button on the app and share, so right now you both should be able to see what's on my screen. Are you both able to see that?
Yes.
Yes.
So that would be one option if you're comfortable with that. The other option, if you're not comfortable with that, is you can send the items to my courtroom email address. And I'm going to put that on the screen in just a moment. And if you want, you can send them to this email address, and then I would be able to put them on the screen for you. So it's cc207@lakecountyil.gov. And Mr. Wilson, you would then also, if you're planning on presenting evidence other than your own testimony, you'd have that same option. So Ms. Rogers, you can think about what you want to do. You can either send the items to this email address, or you can attempt to do a share screen with it. Okay? And if you want some time, if you're going to be emailing them, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that so I can make sure they've arrived to my email box.
Okay, I'll email them to you.
Okay, so I'll hold on for a minute so you can forward those to me. Do either of you have any procedural questions then before we begin the hearing?
No, I don't think I do.
Ms. Rogers, just let me know when you've sent them and I'll make sure they
Okay.
get here. One thing I also do have to advise everybody who is part of this and anybody who might be watching on YouTube that recording, preserving any portion of this hearing is not prohibited, and doing so would be a violation of a court order, which could result in the imposition of sanctions or a finding of contempt. In other words, please do not record this in any fashion whatsoever. Okay, and I see the first email arrived with several attachments. Okay. Ms. Rogers, do you have anything else to send, or was it all able to go in one email?
No, I'm sending another one right now.
Okay. So the first email arrived. Have you sent the second one yet? Oh, there it goes. Okay. All right. Are you sending anything else, Ms. Rogers, or have I received everything? Oh, you're muted right now. There you go.
No, that's it.
Okay. All right, then we'll proceed. I'm going to ask both of you to raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Ms. Rogers?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, clear hands down. So, Ms. Rogers, as I indicated, you go first because you're the moving party. So you have the right now to kind of tell me everything you think I need to know about your request for the plenary order of protection, and specifically as to the allegations you've raised in your petition. So you can go ahead.
So Chris and I broke up in December, and we tried to be civil because we both have children, not together, but we have children that are involved in this. So we tried to be civil with each other, and then he just kind of fell off and started going crazy because he realized that we weren't going to be together, and he verbally threatened my life, threatened to destroy my car, told me that he was going to make my life a living hell, basically. He posted on Snapchat that he was going to have somebody beat my ass, and if they would record it, he would pay them $500, and then proceeded to text me telling me that they hope that they beat my ass in front of my 8-year-old daughter.
And I'm going to kind of ask you to expound a little bit. When did these Snapchats or other messages occur?
The first occurrence was at the end of April when he verbally threatened to stab me.
And where did that occur? Where was that conversation, and was there anybody else part of it?
No, it was just me. I was at home, and he had driven past my house in the middle of the night. And when I wasn't, because I had blocked his number, and he kept calling me like from a private number, and when I was refusing to answer, he was like getting really upset, and so I finally answered, and we were talking, and he told me that the only way, he wasn't going back to jail, because I told him I was going to have to get the police involved if he didn't stop, and he told me that he wasn't going back to jail, and that he would rather be in a body bag, basically. And then told me basically that if he showed up because he told me he was going to come to my house. He told me that if the cops showed up, that one or both of us were going to end up dead, and it was most likely going to be me. And then, like, we had tried to talk about it and tried to, like, go over everything and just try to be, like, civil with each other. And then he proceeded to basically tell me if he ever caught anybody in my car, that he was going to fuck them up, and that that he was going to have somebody beat me up. And he, like, was threatening, he was, like, suicidal and, like, threatening suicide. And my 8-year-old daughter was involved and pretty much had a panic attack because she is 8 and was getting messages saying that this person who she considered her dad was going to kill himself because I wasn't talking to him.
And when were those messages sent?
At the
Was that
end
still
of
the April dates, or were these other dates?
Nope, this was at the end of May. So this was Memorial Day weekend.
So part of it, I want to make sure I understand to the extent possible individual incidents or allegations. So the first incident you were telling me about was the April one with the conversation about not going back to jail. You've now kind of moved on to the communications with your daughter. When possible, I'm going to ask you to kind of break up, you know, on this date, you don't need to know the exact date, but around this time, here's what happened. On this next date, here's what happened, rather than kind of putting everything together in one.
Okay. So the whole phone conversation and driving past my house happened at the end of April, and then everything was okay for a couple of weeks, and then Memorial Day weekend is when things got really bad, when he threatened to have somebody beat me up, and he threatened to destroy my car and make my life miserable. That's when my daughter got involved. He also had, like, his son was involved, sending me messages saying that I didn't love him and this and that, and it just became a huge ordeal.
And again, I know there were specific allegations that you put into your petition. On those, you kind of divvied them up: May 23rd, May 24th, and May 26th.
Right. Over that weekend, he had literally in less than a day called me over 100 times. And he was, because I had number blocked, so he was calling me from a private number over and over and over again. And then when I wasn't answering, he just kept calling.
I'm getting
Like,
a little
he sent me
background noise. I think that is from Mr. Wilson. So Mr. Wilson, what I'm going to do, you're going to get your chance. I'm going to mute it just while Ms. Rogers is giving her side of the story. When it's your turn to ask questions or your turn to provide your side of the story, I will unmute you, okay? All right. Ms. Rogers, you can continue.
Other than that, it was an ongoing issue from then on. He just kept messaging me and saying that he was going to destroy my car and that there was nothing I could do because the car is technically in both of our names.
All right. I know you sent those 2 emails. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. When they came through, they're kind of numbered sequentially. I'm going to go through them in order unless you tell me that they're backwards, and then you can describe how they are relevant.
Okay.
Open the email. That's not it. That's the one that's signing me this. All right. All right, so the first one is labeled image 716. And can you see that, both of you on the screen? Just give me a thumbs up if you can, or nod.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So is this in order? Was this the first one, or was this the last one? Sometimes it reverses.
No, I believe this is the first one.
Okay.
I believe.
I'm going to kind of go through them in order.
basically this whole conversation started because he felt like I was ignoring him and felt like I was moving on with my life and he didn't know how to move on with his life. So he started messaging me and was just asking me like how I do it and all this other stuff. And I tried to like explain to him, like, that's what happens after somebody breaks up. Like, you just have to move on. And he just kept saying like that he wasn't angry about the situation. He just wanted to understand why. And he told me that like in this one that he wanted us to like be a family and be together. And this is just still like the same thing, like just asking for us to be together.
Okay. Ms. Rogers, anything else that you would like to present? Ms. Rogers, anything else? Ms. Rogers, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now I can. Sorry.
Okay. Anything else that you would like to present in support of your request?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So, Mr. Wilson, you should be able to unmute yourself. If you can't, let me know. There you go. So, again, there's kind of procedure we follow. The first is you have the right to ask Ms. Rogers questions about her testimony if you wish. You're not required to. You then, if you do ask questions, we'll go through that. You then will have the right to present information or evidence of your own if you wish. Again, you're not required to do anything. So first, do you have any questions for Ms. Rogers?
No, I don't have no questions.
Okay. So then it's going to be your opportunity to present anything you would like. Again, it can be as simple as you telling me your side of the story. If there are, if there's any evidence, text, videos, recordings, what have you, that you want to present, you can do that as well. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, no. So let me first off start by saying that she knows that I am. Sometimes I'm bipolar, and I suffer from depression. So those messages legit came out of no more than anger. She knows personally that I would never hurt her, nor her daughter, or anybody in her family. So I love them like they're my own.
Mm-hmm.
So with that all being said, that basically, everything that's been said has been said out of straight anger and rage. Now, this now is interfering with my new job.
In what way?
When I was served, apparently it hit their system, and I am on leave until this is settled without the order.
Okay. What is your job, sir?
I work at a 7-Eleven, but it's a corporate location.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I cut you off, so keep going. Whatever else you want me to know.
That's it, honestly. Like there's nothing else. Like honestly, like she wants me to leave her alone, that's fine. I can do all that. But I need this job because already I'm a felon. And it's hard to get a good paying job as a felon.
Okay. Anything else you want me to consider?
I mean, if you could possibly have her explain to my 9-year-old son like what's going on, because he doesn't get it the way I tell it to him, because obviously I'm not really good at explaining things to kids.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Wilson?
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Rogers, as I indicated, you have the right to ask questions of Mr. Wilson, the same as he had the right to ask questions of you. Do you have any questions for him?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Then the evidence will be closed. You each have the right, if you wish, to make an argument to me about that. Ms. Rogers can argue why she believes the plenary order of protection should be granted. Mr. Wilson can argue why he believes it shouldn't. You're not required to argue, but I'm going to give each of you the chance. So, Ms. Rogers, do you have any additional argument for me to consider?
My only thing is that, like, I have this temporary order of protection, and he has already contacted me since I put this into place, asking me to not come to court today because he is on the verge of losing his job.
Anything else, Ms. Rogers?
No.
Okay. Mr. Wilson, it's your turn. Any argument you want me to consider?
Just like I said, just the whole job thing. Like it took me so long after I got out of jail to even find a job. And now I have a decent paying job and I just don't want to lose it.
Sure. Okay, I've had the chance to consider the testimony of both the petitioner and the respondent. I've had the opportunity to review the evidence beyond the testimony. In this case, that is a number of messages in a couple different formats that were emailed, and I had the chance to review. So, as always, I'm required to follow the Domestic Violence Act. Mr. Wilson does not dispute that he sent those text messages, and really the messages say what they say. He acknowledges that they are threatening, and they are. You know, at various points, he makes statements to the effect of keep your eye out your window tonight, threatening to show up at Ms. Rogers' job or house, making statements such as, if I can't be happy, you can't, and that he would make it his personal mission to ensure that. I will continue to make your life worse. It's going to get a lot more worse before it gets better. Also says, I'm buying a gun Friday. While Mr. Wilson states that those were made from a feeling of anger or rage that has since dissipated, and he states that he, while angry before, he doesn't present a danger. And I would note that Mr. Wilson seems very calm and cool and collected right now. There's no disputing that those messages are threatening. Really, any way you look at them, they're threatening. And so I'm going to find that there was a pattern of abuse, harassment, or threats under the Act. Now, the next question is, what does that mean? There is a presumption that the order of protection of plenary should be put in place once I make those findings. And Mr. Wilson, I will tell you that I absolutely empathize with you, how difficult it is to find a job in the current economy anyway, particularly for, as you note, your prior felony conviction. It is challenging, does not begin to talk about how difficult that is. And it would be extremely unfortunate if you lose your job because a plenary order of protection is put in place. But ultimately, that is not a ground for me to deny it. I'm obligated to follow the law, and I do find that these threats were absolutely made. So under the Act, I am going to order the 2-year plenary order of protection. It is going to protect both Ms. Rogers and the minor child with the initial CB. The reason I'm using that is this is simulcast for now, and in the event that somebody else is watching, I doubt that will be ordered. What's going to happen is the clerk, are you going to email a copy out? The clerk will email a copy to each of you. I know I have Ms. Rogers' email address because she sent in her exhibits. Mr. Wilson, do you have an email address you can provide so you can receive a copy?
Yes.
And what is that?
Wilson4123 at gmail.com.
Okay, Wilson4123 at gmail.com. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
is there any way I can grab my personal belongings from her?
Ms. Rogers, do you have any personal belongings of his at this point?
I mean, I might have a couple of things, but I have a bunch of stuff at his house, and the car that he's driving, I'm paying for.
As far as any property of the other, that should be arranged to be transferred at the police department. It can be done through them. I mean, I'm assuming it's more personal items and not large pieces of furniture and stuff like that, right?
No, it's just personal items. Like
I need the other key to my car.
My car, I'm paying for it.
So I'm not going to get into that issue. If there is jointly held property, that's something for you to address with whoever the car loan or what have you is through. I mean, basically at this point, I'm ordering that Mr. Wilson have no contact of any kind with Ms. Rogers. So I know the jointly held properties can be tough, but you have to figure it out in a way that doesn't require communication. Mr. Wilson, I know you asked about Ms. Rogers communicating with your child. I don't have the ability, nor would I order her to have a conversation. So hopefully you can find somebody who is able to hopefully explain it to your son. It's going to take me a few minutes to get this order in place. Mr. Wilson, there was an allegation, and I'm not making any findings about whether or not it's true that you've had contact with Ms. Rogers. If you have future communications or violate this order, and she contacts the police, you could be charged with a case out of that. And it's even harder to get a job with a felony conviction order protection if you're in custody. So please make sure you comply with it. Are there any questions before I terminate this hearing? I'll issue the order and you will receive copies of it.
All right, so how do I go about, you said I gotta go to the police station and
So,
have them?
in the order, you make arrangements. Where do you, let's see, Ms. Rogers, you're in Antioch, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Waukegan. So you can make arrangements through either the Antioch PD or the Waukegan PD to meet and transfer property. That wasn't done when the emergency order protection was issued?
No.
No, okay. So you can contact the police department. It'll be done at their convenience, whichever is easier for you. I'm not sure who's got more stuff that's got to be moved. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you, folks. Good luck to both of you.